All right, guys, so welcome to another episode of the Imperfectly Perfect podcast, where each week I'm joined by some of the world's most renowned faces in the entertainment industry, on the sports field, corporate leaders, and inspirational thought leaders around the world, each sharing their own truths and their personal journeys. Today, we have none other than Rachael Hunter joining us, and I couldn't be more happier to delve into a discussion, not only about her journey, but more so about a spiritual journey. Renowned as one of the world's leading supermodels and actresses, she began a career at age 16 and was quickly signed up to Ford Models, and immediately embarked on a successful career gracing the world's most prestigious magazine covers, including Vogue, Elle, Rolling Stone, Sports Illustrated, Cosmopolitan, Harper's Bazaar, and Sports Illustrated Swimsuit issue. Appeared on multiple films, music videos, and the host of her own show, Rachael Hunter's Tour of Beauty, traveling the world to discover what beauty actually meant in various countries. She's also been connected to a spiritual side for her entire life, and in recent years has explored the world to learn from the very best, including an extended stay in India where she lived in Sadhguru's Ashram, and has turned that experience into helping others discover and explore their own spirituality. So welcome to the show, Rachael.
Thank you. That was quite an introduction.
I always say, what's it always like listening back over to everything like you've done?
I don't know. I kind of tend to go into hermit mode and just kind of go put my fingers in my ears and go la 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 la.
Well, we've got to touch obviously on an incredible career like you've just done, and the reason why is because the Imperfectly Perfect campaign is really to draw again towards that spiritual side. My journey has come full fruition into it. But people often look at people like yourself on screen, catwalks, magazines, and think you must have this ultimate life. And what the IPC is about is really uncovering and getting to know the person behind that profession, because we don't know what happened. And I mean, if you can take us back briefly to around, it was 16, 17 when you were spotted. You was an avid athlete, ballerina, I believe. And then you had a blood disorder, which changed, I suppose, the trajectory of your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I was a very kind of quiet inward child growing up, and I loved my ballet, and I was obviously, like you just said, a runner at school and stuff, at track, and I was just very, very much an introvert, and it wasn't until I had this blood disorder, basically, it was toxoplasmosis, where I didn't really have the energy to go to school. It kind of stopped me doing a lot of the things that I loved doing, because the energy was just completely gone. And after that, I started running again, and then this person stopped me on the beach and said, do you want to take photos? And I was like, that's just weird. And took the number home to my mum, and anyway, cut a long story short, I ended up, in an agency, and it happened really, really fast. But, that it's not something, I mean, the idea of what you are to somebody else isn't your idea, right? Like it's just not, because we're living in our own little personal package that we entered here in. And so, to work out those types of either stories or conditioning or just ways that I arrived. And again, I want to start this interview off, this is my experience. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not any of these things. This is my personal journey, because I can't speak for others, and I don't want to change others. Unless someone takes a little bit of something of this, then that's great, but I'm not here to do any of that, other than really just wish for my full expression, and therefore hopefully others, that people, not because of me, but other people flourish too. But I think, like your campaign says, is like, I was quiet, I was inward, and that idea of perfection, with what you see as far as modeling is concerned, and then that imperfection, which can be anything from how I thought of myself, or I thought of myself as a geek. Like I had a gap in between my tooth. I loved my animals. I loved nature. I wasn't all into dressing up and walking on catwalks or anything. In fact, the only thing I did do was more probably in the acting side, as my sister and I would put on these little wee plays in our garage, but it was never to be a model or anything. So when I entered that world, it was kind of, I was reluctant. I really didn't want to be there. I wanted to be a veterinarian or a ballerina, which I was way too tall anyway. So it was very opposite to what I was aspiring to be as a person. And what do you know you're aspiring to be too, because it can change so rapidly.
Yeah. But I mean, with everyone's past, there's pivotal moments where everything changes, that trajectory and everything. But reading about yourself and furthermore into what I want to delve into, because I think it's fascinating, and the spiritual side of things, like, was that something as a child we explore, we creative? Was that something you picked up on the spiritual side from parents, grandparents? Did you always have it with you, or is it something later in life you've developed and found your truth and who you are again?
Yeah, I basically grew up with a mum who was very, very spiritual. Like, there was no, that was never not known in the family. Like, mum always would, I mean, she always had us in nature, which to me has a huge spiritual impact and a connection to something that's greater than myself. And, you know, just seeing how things, you know, evolve and happen and create. And she was always talking, we would be in different religions. Like, sometimes we wouldn't be in a religion. That's when she would be having sage and crystals, and there'd be ghosts, and there would be all this. And then the next thing would be in, you know, speaking in tongues, and then would be going to, you know, later on became kind of Buddhist, then kind of looking at Mormon. So there was a complete array of different types of religions. And then the spiritual aspect of it was to kind of weave all those in some way. And so there was always a sprinkling of it somewhere, and it would always find its way back in, even when I would be in New York, and I would be super lonely and just feeling really, really down. And I'd find myself in the middle of a church, like just sitting there, because there would be people there, and there would be an element of something that's bigger. There's something that's bigger that's driving this force, that why I am here in New York City. And there was that support within this church that I was sitting in, because I just felt that that's what I knew from growing up with mum, is whenever that spiritual aspect was there, when there was something unknown, it felt supportive to me. So yeah, there was big pivotal moments many times throughout my younger life, but also obviously with the toxoplasmosis, which we started the interview off with, and then moving rapidly from being introvert, you know, who used to talk to animals, to ballet, to all these kind of, to next thing, I'm on a plane to New York City. Like, how does that even happen? And not even blinking an eye to it. So I think the spirituality has always come back in. I've kind of distanced from it, and then all of a sudden it'll come back in, because it's those moments. It's funny, I was writing a thing at this, I want to do a book at one point, just going, you know, when you're at the surrender, you are just like, I need help, I need something, like, show me. And you're looking up, doing this, please just show me, help me, you know. And at some point when there is that surrender is when things, that it changes. And there were many, like I said, there's many pivotal points of that, including the biggest point, which is when my mum passed. So she was a huge part of my spiritual upbringing and awareness of religion and spirituality, as well as that is where it took me ultimately when she passed. It really pushed me on that journey even further.
Wow, I love that. It's funny, because my spiritual journey, I'm sat here, and the thing that I've noticed with me, and to our listeners, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but when I'm speaking to people, the only thing I see now is auras. And around you, you've just got this bright white and blue aura all around you. And when I was telling people at first, they was like, you really see that? I'm like, yeah, it's just, it distracts me from seeing the person, because it's just so blue and so white around you. And yeah, the spiritual path, which is why I was so excited to get you on, because your website and what you do now and helping people through it, that surrender that you touch upon, do you feel that everything that you've been through and been put on this journey, you can look back now at pivotal moments and realize that the fame, the money, everything is a byproduct of who you are today and what you've learned, and being able to share those wisdoms and those experiences from a personal point of view, like you said, to everybody else?
Yeah, like I said, like going from the shy child to within, you know, at 16 to the next thing, being on a plane and being on the cover of Vogue and Harper's Bazaar in Australia, and then going up and immediately shooting a Revlon commercial. All these things were, you just didn't, you wouldn't expect. And I think that when you have the distrust in it, is like those moments where you're like I'm, right now I'm going through one of those moments of like, I'm ready to go. I want to go, I want to start traveling again. I'm ready to go. And then all of a sudden there's something in my body happens. Like I was just talking about, like I had a cracked tooth and that caused an infection, and now I've got to go back and I've got to do something. It's like, come on, I just want to get going. Yeah. And you're getting really frustrated. It's like this volcano, right? And it's just boiling and boiling and boiling, and you're like, why am I stopping? Why is nothing working? I don't understand. I mean, listen, my problems are minute compared to, respectively, to so many other people that are having so many massive going processes that people are moving through. But it's just that boiling point, and then that surrender happens and it just implodes, and then you're just like, oh my God, that's why. And all of a sudden there is that reason why. And then, because it's funny, because people go, well, where's the knowledge, like the understanding, like look at those moments. And then you go, you have that fork in the road, and you could have taken that or that, and you took that, or you sat with it, and then you surrendered, but you still kept moving forward. And you had, like, you cry, you reach out to friends, you have your introvert moments, you have your aloneness moments, and things can get hard. And I definitely went through those in a young age. A lot of heavy mental times for me was when I was a lot younger, and then that happens. And I think through the process, like, you look, quiet child going out into the public eye, and I look at my path and I go, I get why this all happened. And that's the beauty and the wisdom, I guess, of getting older. But I never want to underestimate that. I think now, faster than ever, we're seeing this incredible generation of up and coming leaders, and this incredible motion and movement that is happening in the world, seeing some really strong generations that are coming up that are really supporting that much faster, learning that much faster than probably what I did, because of the expression that's happening. It's not just one person's idea of what should be on a magazine or on TV or on anywhere. It's so multi-layered, and it should be, and cultural and expressive, and things we feel uncomfortable with and hard to understand and don't understand, and ignorance, and it's all really confronting and important and powerful. And so we're really going through a really strong time, but this is what it's all about. So you look at, like, I look at my life and I go, I get why. I keep going off on tangents, I know, just bring me back in, but it just all makes sense. You just go, I get it. Uncomfortable's shit, man. Uncomfortable's really fucked up and hard. And it's really agitating and really annoying.
But have you noticed along that path, and why I try and bring this to the listeners through everyone's journey, corporate leaders, models, entertainers, everything, it's kind of that process of shedding the ego, everything that we've been taught and being in the flesh, And there's a great book that I read recently. I was just pulling it up on my phone. It was that great. I forgot the name, but it was called Divine Compensation. And there's another one called Surrender, Letting Go. And through that, did you find it a hard process? Because I think business, anything I've noticed, seems to become easier when we sort and we tap into this, into source, into Dharma. What was it like for you in terms of shedding, I suppose, the ego like we all have in a sense?
Yeah, the ego and the stories and the conditioning of what we come in with, what we learn, however way you want to see it, and then living in that true Dharma. And I think that's probably what happened in India for me, is just repeating the same patterns over and over and over and over again, and seeing me just treading on the same thing, not shifting, and feeling uncomfortable. And then doing that and consistently looking at that and doing it and listening and understanding, using the senses, listening, speaking, not speaking. You know, that's a big thing. Like, I mean, sometimes I'm not, like, I could not listen to you because I'm already preparing my answer over, you know, so it's listening to people, and maybe sometimes for me not to say anything. You know, that was one of the most powerful things I've learned is to, that brings the ego right back. You know, try just, you know, and you know, when I was in lockdown in Sadhguru's ashram, and I was in silence for 19 days before we went into lockdown, and that really taught me the power of just like that being state, but up to that point of going through the processes of seeing different behaviors, seeing where my mind would want to go, seeing how I would want to try and even listen to conversations so I know what was going on. Like, I was trying to get one of my senses to do something to try and, you know, stay connected. And then all of it just kind of dropped away, the stories and that ego part of it, to me, is constantly being worked out. And the Dharma of it, when you're sitting in that seat of Dharma, it really just flows and becomes available, and you it's powerful, because, you know, the thing is it's, I think the spirituality, it's that integration of human. For me, my experience is integrating human and spiritual. They're not separate. And really understanding that this is like a coexisting, like, embodiment of who we are, and for it not to be this battle of I'm spiritual, I'm rich, I'm this, I'm that, I'm powerful, I'm powerless, I'm, you know, and to take the time for every single one of us to embody that moment of seeing human like a human, you know, that whole being, and really being with that. And then the ego drops a lot, because then we're just eye to eye, and that's it, you know. And that's powerful when you see everybody as that kind of equality. I mean, all the beings, I mean, look how well they did. They were strutting their feathers and their hooves across the main streets of many cities across the world during lockdown. But I think, you know, dropping the ego and working on conditioning, and this is such this beautiful brain we have. It's not about getting rid of, it's just like harnessing that and watching those thoughts, and for me, and observing my behavior, changing my behavior, growing from my behavior. And sometimes that can take, you know, it can be quick, or sometimes it can take years. You know, I may not learn it in this lifetime, but I think the observation, but never to, for me, our brain is incredible. Like, I mean, we have this source that is so beautiful, and we can tap into it. So, and that to me is kind of just to explore, as well as, you know, because during meditation people go, you know, just not to think. We're resting the mind in order to create that space to allow that wisdom and clarity of thought, clarity to be able to see things differently, create that space within the mind to be able to absorb some new ideas, some new fragrance of life, you know?
Yeah, I love that, because it's essentially what the IPC is, what you did there. It's been come to fruition through the oldest form of communication, storytelling, and seeing humans for humans. Like, I was brought up in the fitness industry, so I never saw professions. Everyone goes in for a commonality. So I suppose that was my discernment. But you touched on that listening thing then. And I once heard years ago, it was like there's three types of listeners: those who don't listen, those who try, but they're too in their head thinking what they're going to say, and then the ones who can actually just sit there and have a great conversation that flows. And you pointed something out there, unbeknown to you, but I was recently speaking to Dr. Joe Dispenza on the brain and everything. And
oh, wow.
What you came out with there, what he did, what I've noticed, and again, this is probably a discernment that I've picked up, is there's three things I've noticed in people that have finally come to that place of connecting in. And it's that this childlike nature, it's going back and finding that innocence. And when you speak, there's so much passion in it. The second one is listening. And the third one is the creativity, the masculine, feminine, and tapping into yourself. And when people are going, I can teach how to make 6-7 figures, and I can teach this, this, and this. There's no secret. If we tap in here, we've got everything that we need. And I think if we could all just like move away and drop that ego, but again, no judgment, because we're all on a different part of that trajectory. And I perhaps didn't know it back then, and it's been a long journey for me. But coming to your website, you're doing things, rituals with Rachael Hunter. Now you've transitioned. Obviously, you do everything that you do with your career, but you've transitioned from that wisdom and experience to teach other people. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm still trying to move through like how the integration of like what to call yoga, because I just love the ritual aspect of it, because I came from a very esoteric upbringing with my mum, with tarot cards and all these things that I found after she passed away. And the ritual aspect is, we have so many beautiful rituals, and I think for people to like, even somebody who just loves making their amazing cup of coffee, you know, or they love a tea ceremony, or they take such pride and beauty of being creative with flowers, or, you know, for me, it's like breath work, and I love working with different types of energies, or sometimes I'll get shea butter and decide to put petals in it. I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but you know, but why not? So it's any type of ritual. Eventually, what that platform will become is any type of ritual is a ritual. And I think with the action of the different, you know, we talk about, like in yoga, we talk about three different, the Shaktis, like the energies, like creative energies, and, you know, that the attention, the wisdom, and the action, like what really is the intention? What is your will? What is it that you embody and want to flourish? And really, what is that? Like, I mean, we can all just sit here and go, okay, I'm going to be kind and compassionate today. But if you just take that moment and like really put your hands together and breathe into that space, and then really take that time to go, you know, from all the way through the body, you know, repeat that mantra of whatever it is, love, compassion. And I want to embody this and be this, and I see this. And then in the action, obviously we gain wisdom when there's space, and we gain wisdom as we move through our day, regardless. I mean, just the openness of doing that. And I mean, wisdom is important, whether you're reading philosophy, you're understanding something, you're experiencing something. For me, a lot of it, especially with the teachings that I've learned, is experiencing them becomes your wisdom. So you can really speak from the experience of it. And then the action of just, you know, of what is the action behind that. So I love that philosophy of those three, because it's really, really, it's taking that creativity, it's taking that energy, taking that vibration, and making that cake mix consistently and learning from that. So that's kind of where that came from. Obviously on there's breath work and, you know, some different mudras and stuff, and it's mostly yoga right now, but eventually I'd like to add more to it, you know, and just see what people's rituals are. What are they? What are yours, by the way? What would you say you do? Like with a lot of intent.
I used to find, like, this is what I love. I resonate with what you say there when it comes to, you really have to tap further in, because like those entry points of meditation, I was like, my head runs at 10 miles, like 100 miles an hour. It goes everywhere. So I actually started doing the Wim Hof purely for the point of, if I'm concentrating on the cold, I can tap into my inner self and concentrate on my breathing, which then led to that. A good friend in the US, Jeremy, he got me into my first breath work, and I thought, this is bloody hard. Like, it was like trying to, I'm like, and I saw people who was doing it with me, and one's body was shaking, one was in tears and just released it. But it was a sense of this, like, you see people for their spiritual brothers and sisters, and it's like, you might not know people, and you can just talk to them so easy, and you're on this common level. So they're really mine, and I've got into my reading, wife and kids, trying to get my wife more into it because she was grown Buddhist. So we're just having these conversations and stuff like that.
Amazing.
So everything that you have learned, one question I asked everyone that come on the campaign is, what does it mean to be imperfectly perfect to you?
I would have to take it back to that, is to go back to the beautiful, to that awareness of that moment when you first, you know, started taking the world in, and that childlike innocence. And to me, there's nothing more beautiful than when kids even mess up, like the whole exploration of life, of that capacity to be so open, and the eyes wide open and the heart wide open, and just going, I just want to seem to create that beautiful safe place within yourself to be able to see and to continue to see, with at the same time with the strength and the fierceness to embody that, to protect, you know, when need be. And I don't even think you have to throw your voice very loud for that when you really believe in it. But I think it has to go back to being like that innocence of being a child as a wise adult. Yeah,
that's hard.
Not as a wise adult, probably not like you've got that protection, you know what's what, you know what's what, but at the same time, when you greet something, it's like, I want to understand, like, what's going on, what are you doing, you know, this is so exciting, rather than, oh my god, I see you as a threat.
Yes, you know what,
you're going to take that away from me. That was my idea. Like, who the fuck has a new idea? Not many people.
Yeah, I have learned along this.
I mean, lots of people do. I take that back.
But it's the same thing. It's like we conditioned, we judge whether something's good or bad, and then people compete and they think someone's life's better than theirs and theirs and theirs. And I'm like, what I'm trying to show with this is, like, we look at what you've done, it's incredible, but we don't know behind the scenes. Like press, publications, they sell stories, advertising, anything. But yet we don't know someone's struggles, what they've been through. And I think if we can remove that judgment and realize, you know what, if it comes back to spirituality, God, we've all been given gifts. So there's no competition. Like, what's meant for me is meant for me, and what's meant for you. And I think what I've learned along the way, and I'm 37, but I'm starting to learn, is that my struggles, if I can impart them onto someone else to try and help them through the wisdom that I'm learning through mine, and that next person can, I think that's humanity. It's like we're trying to help each other. So if I can pull someone up at the same time, but with the IPB now, the Imperfectly Perfect campaign about storytelling, growing up, we asked these short, quick questions. What was your favorite story growing up?
I love Black Beauty.
Is there a reason why? Something that resonated with it?
I don't know. I was obsessed by animals and the interaction with them, and that relationship with animals and nature and stuff. Like I love that. And I had a bug catcher. I'm trying to see if one of my books are around here. I actually wrote inside my books, and I was like, this is Rachael Hunter's Do Not. I was very protective over my books. Yeah, I would say like the horse books on National Velvet or anything that was connected to animals. I loved. I remember, God, there was, yeah, I read a lot of books when I was a kid.
And what's your number one go-to for picking yourself up when you're feeling down?
Moving, nature. I would say moving nature for sure.
Nice. And then just two last questions for you. I just want to know what, if anything, so this campaign's obviously about mental health, well-being, if there's anyone struggling there. From a personal experience, what is your hope for humanity or for somebody that may be going through something, what you've learned along your journey?
Can you repeat that again?
What would be ultimately through your spiritual journey, your hope for humanity when people can understand or take something away from what you've learned?
I think more like what we have, I think, intensely learned over the last 2 years is human connection and the beauty of not actually sometimes even, like, I'm not talking about parties, I'm talking about that, even though that I'm sure a lot of people probably could, but I'm talking like just human connection, like really the growth that we've been through internally is what we've seen is pretty incredible. Like people really looking at that inner glow, that inner wisdom inside is pretty incredible. And I hope that continues. And also I'm just a big, like, number one, our health is absolutely, and we've heard this, is our wealth. And that's not only physically, but also obviously mentally, because we can't see the hurts. Like if I have hurt myself, we see it. Like you can see it physically, but mentally and the inside, it's very, very, very hard and very hard to move through. And the reaching out and the awareness that I hope keeps growing, that we keep evolving to support each other, and not only that, to support the other beings that live on this planet. And our awareness starts taking a huge responsibility in those actions to continue. Because we have to, right? Like we need to.
I think the world is, isn't it? I think something's evolving, like things are being exposed and things are coming to full fruition.
Yeah.
People are kind of like, I won't say waking up, but I mean kind of like just being exposed to new things and ways of thinking. So
it's just incredible. Like it is the most incredible part of it is the truths that have been coming out and the importance that people are getting heard, that need to be heard and should be heard. And hopefully that we see each other. We start really seeing each other.
That's it.
Yeah.
Seeing each other and listening to each other. Well, I want to thank you on behalf of the campaign, on behalf of coming onto IPC, like just sharing your story and letting people know behind the scenes isn't always what we see on stage, screen, or anything like that. But where can people, I mentioned your website before, but where else can people find out more information about you and your courses?
Yeah, on my website, or also on Rachael Hunter. I've got to put an X on there because someone took my identity now. But no, you can go on. You can follow me on there as well. But you know, we're so lucky in the world now. It's got so much access with yoga and meditation, and honestly, I think meditation really is key with everybody, as far as of nature, meditation, moving. And really acknowledging that space that you're in, and thank you also for you and your I mean, you're just amazing, so beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry it's taken so long for us to connect.
That's all right. You know what? As we go, when it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Things align.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So guys, Make sure you tune in, subscribe to the show. I'll put all the links up where you can find Rachael. But remember, the thing with the IPC is keep having the hard conversations, going past the superficial conversations, because it's those conversations that save lives. Until next time, thank you.